I'm Janet Perry, and we are on location at the workshop of Al Guimond. Al was kind enough to let us come in and nose around and see some of his works. Good morning, Al.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Fine, thank you. I noticed some of your canes as I was coming through.
Oh.
They're very interesting.
Those are fun sticks. They're walking sticks. They're not really a cane. Let me shut this off. Don't want to have a little burning tool hot on our hands here. These are mostly just decorative walking sticks. They're not really canes as such. I do a lot of these for various people, and I call them story sticks. As you can see, we got this one titled Moby Dick, and we got the whale on top, and Captain Ahab. Here's the good square rigger Pequod. You can see it's carved right into the surface, and down here we have the chase. It's quite interesting to try and fit all these things on a shaft that's about an inch around, and you have trouble navigating some of the figures, but that's part of the problem. I do make a lot of these for various people in various types. Here's one you might like.
Oh, I don't like that one.
This is called the Rattler.
Ooh.
He just came out of it. Once the handle was put on, this is what was suggested by the way the handle curved. Now you'll notice that this is what we call a T handle, and in order to put this on, the whole shaft is grooved. Oh, in fact, I'll go right from the start with these and show you just exactly how we put one together. I have a piece here. This is a piece of curly willow with the bark still on it. And in the process of making a stick out of this, I would debark this, preferably when it's green. But this lasted a little too long, and this might be a little job getting the bark off, but it'll work anyway. But when the bark is taken off, the shaft looks like this. There's been no drawing on it as yet, or no compositional idea. And when I do these, in order to fit the handle, I always give myself a reminder of front and rear by putting a little pencil mark on here. And I find myself a piece of wood that's going to be suitable for the handle. And that is marked also with a little pencil mark. And when the fit is made, this is set in an epoxy, a quick setting epoxy, and then there's a birch dowel that's driven through. I don't have my hammer here, but this will do. That's driven through and set with the glue, allowed to set, and then the birch dowel is trimmed off, and this is all flushed in by sanding and filing. So then the next step is to figure out what you're going to do with it. You've got the stick, unless you've got a story or some idea of what you want to do with it. It sort of sits around here for a little while you ponder on what it's going to be, and a lot of times I'll have maybe 3 or 4 of these sitting around with very few drawn up at all.
Does it make a difference when you're going to do one for someone that you know them to make the story for them?
Yes, by all means. It gives you a good start. For instance, we have here a cane with a piper on it. Now, I do some of these with the sketches of the bagpiper and use the Scotch thistle and the top, which has the belt and the badge. Now, this hasn't been requested yet, but it's left plain. All the carving is done. It's outlined with a burning pencil, and this part is left open so that the proper tartan can be painted in this area, and the proper tartan put on the gentleman, the bagpiper's kilt and his sash here. That also leaves the top open. Now I have a request for a cane for a drum major, and that will change this figure. It'll become a drum major rather than a piper. And then what would happen on that particular cane is that taking this type of a top, we would then take the Mackenzie badge, which is this one right here, with the proper motto, and this will be used as the top for the cane for this particular drum major. They seem to like this, you know.
Yes, that's beautiful.
It makes it very personal, and the clan tartan will be proper. We use the Mackenzie clan tartan. I do research into the books on the proper colors and the proper badge to go on it. Not all of them are Scottish in nature. We have a number of others. Right here, this one is not quite along yet. This is just Don Quixote. And as you see, where I've burned the pencil in and done pencil burning on it, it allows me to go back here to get a sharp knife, I think, and then I can work right against that burned line, and it gives me good demarcation to set the figure in. That way I don't lose it like I would with a pencil line. It has a tendency to put a little burned wall in there that you work to after this figure is all relieved and the little portions cut out like this. Why, then I can go back and take that little bit of difference in surface to round the figure out and give the relief. Sometimes it gets a little difficult to get features because the offset is so thin, but it does work out. That's the reason for the burning. We have Don Quixote on his mule on the front, Rosamunda, and on the back we have one of those windmills he tilts at. Somewhere down here in this area there will be a figure of Sancho Panza, who was his fat little assistant or number two man, his squire, whatever you might want to call it.
It looks like you take the advantage of the curve and
I try to.
put your figures.
It helps in making the figures to do that. And in this case, the shaft and the head are different woods. The head is mahogany, and the shaft again is curly willow. But it will be colored. There will be various amounts of color put on this shaft, and this will just be a stained top here. We've got other types of canes. This is one of my favorites here.
That's beautiful.
This is a hiking stick, not a cane, and they call it the wizard stick. We have a Merlin type character on the front, and the legend that says it was a time when wizards were in the land. We have some fairy folk here, little fairies carved on the surface, and down here we have a troll, and the legend below him said, "And we folk too." And then we have a very juicy dragon that goes all the way around the shaft and carries the theme down toward the bottom. This was quite well received at a couple of the carving shows.
I like that.
There are not many people that ask for a staff. Most of them want a cane, and it's a little different. Since I've made this, I've had a number of requests for a longer staff like this. Whether it's just to put it in an umbrella stand or whether the people actually intend to walk with it, I don't know. But it's an interesting concept. We have others. The mermaid with the shells and the fish. And this is another T-handled cane. Mostly I shouldn't say cane, I should say walking stick. Canes, I always think of splints and broken legs and things like that, and I don't go for that. This is for outdoor lovers. This is a European widgeon, and the colors are taken from the bird book, the Audubon bird book. So we do a little research on these. It sometimes takes you into a time span of maybe a week or a week and a half.
Did you add that bill on that?
No, no.
Oh, it was on
that piece actually
you went
curved.
down?
Yeah, it actually was a curved branch,
wow.
and this is the way it came out.
Well, that's an idea.
Mm-hmm. You use what you can use. Later on, I may get a chance to show you some what we call minimal carving, which is where you take a piece and take as little out as you have to in order to achieve a certain result.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the involvement is not just the canes. The involvement is all mediums. You work in everything that comes up. Everyone presents a new approach and a new challenge. I find that I'm sort of a nut for this, because something new will come up and I'll drop the old stuff and start off on a new medium and explore it. And sometimes it's like a procrastination. If you have something to do and you get a new medium, what you have to do will be put back till you find out about this new medium.
Well, that's progress.
Yeah, it's progress. Right.
I noticed that one over there is wood and something together.
Yeah, this is
that's pretty.
Wood and alabaster. Again,
oh, that is pretty.
The bane of any workshop where somebody does work with wood and other things is that you come across an enormous amount of dust, so you'll probably be running into dust all day today. This is alabaster. Probably won't be able to pick up too much detail on this, but I regret now that I put it on this wood. It should have been put on a different kind of wood, but in fitting this small piece on here and then carving the piece to get a nice feel to it, the joint didn't come out as close as I'd like. If I'd gone to a darker wood, you wouldn't have noticed this. But against the light wood, I'll always have that black line in there, and it bothers me. This is more of an experiment
I like the contrast.
than anything real serious.
That's pretty.
I just wanted to try joining wood and stone together, and with some of the new cements and some of the new adherents, it's very easy to do.
I noticed you had a, where's my favorite?
Well, your favorite is over there on the bench.
Oh, yeah.
I
like this.
This is a bronze casting. It weighs about maybe, I'd say 7 pounds, 6, 7 pounds.
Mm.
Anyhow, this was made in what they call the Cyr Perdue method, or lost wax. The figure is modeled in wax. It's then coated with a ceramic investment. The ceramic investment is allowed to dry. The necessary vents, little thin tubes and things, and then this is turned over and there's a funnel-like sprue put on here. And that's all covered with ceramic investments except for the place you pour the metal. This is then put in a kiln or a heating kiln like this, in this position, and taken up to heat, which sets the ceramic. It hardens the ceramic investment, and it bleeds out all the wax. The wax all runs out through the vents and the sprues. Then the foundry man will take that hot investment mold out of the oven while it's still hot, and he'll take his ladle and he'll pour bronze in here, and that chases out the rest of the wax.
Oh.
And the only part that's difficult about it is that something done in this method, if you miss, you start over, because there's only one copy,
Yeah.
and this is it. But
Now, you lost me along here someplace. I'm wondering, did you make this figure and set that in there after this?
well, the figure was set in there and
Yeah.
then bonded with wax,
Oh, okay,
but it's
okay,
all one
then-
piece otherwise.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
The figure wasn't made separate and welded in. It was all part of this model.
Okay.
And,
Sounds complicated.
It is very complicated.
Beautiful.
And it's very hard to dust.
Beautiful.
But after that comes out, then all these little sprues are cut off, and the vents and the sprues and they're ground, and the acid bath is put on to change the color, and that's where you get this nice dark color. If you were to scuff this with sandpaper, it would be a gold underneath, a gold bronze underneath. But this, the green and the dark area is all a result of an acid bath and heat.
Mm. That is pretty.
So yeah, that those things are generally sketched up. Well, let me show you here. Maybe we can. I hate to get you all dusty, but we'll show you some of this other stuff, the way things are done. I think we can move this over here. And you can put that over by that crest. I'm doing some woodwork for
That's nice.
somebody to put up before Christmas. So.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, now I'm sorry that the piece isn't still here, but it's a small girl seated, and it's done in walnut, and it was done as part of a memorial for a school child down in Utica. Her principal called and asked me to do that. I have done 2 of those in the past month. It's a rather interesting thing because my labor costs are made up into a check and sent down to Children's Hospital.
Oh, good.
The rest, the materials are paid for out of the kids take a collection up and they pay for the materials and stuff like that. The labor cost on it goes into a check at the end, and whatever the rest of the collection is that they got goes to Children's Hospital. This, getting back to this again, this is a sketch that shows roughly the position of the figure. It just goes to show that you can use anything. You can use a pencil, you can use crayons, you can use anything like that to make a sketch. Wax, clay, any of these things. It just happened that copper wire was handy. Twist it up, it gives me the position of the figure with the arm on the knee and the other leg bent back here. And she had a book in her lap here. This was the start, but it gave me the concept that I wanted to get, the lines, and it's just like a line drawing that you'd see in a sketch pad. You know, just the major lines give you the direction, the flow of the figure. And this can be amplified, this can be built upon. We have some figures in the other room that are started out as sketches, and they have been finished and then painted, and they're reasonably attractive, and they're quite sturdy. It seems strange, but this is the next step. Now this again is a sketch. There's underneath here, there's a wire armature, and then over the wire there's masking tape, just plain old paper tape. Then once you get the buildup, and here sometimes you use a little piece of cardboard too underneath it to stiffen it up, but the masking tape holds it all together. Then after that I use what is known as splint gauze, the same kind of thing that a doctor would use in his office to put a cast on your arm. It's a gauze that's already impregnated with plaster, and it works like a dream, because I can take a metal armature like this, and if you're feeling lonely working out here or anything, I can take a cup of water and go in the house and just put a little piece of paper and a cup on that, and dip these little pieces in and work on it. There's no
You
mess.
can mold it while it's before it dries,
you
right?
just lay it on
Yeah.
and rub it like that,
Yeah,
and then it
that's
dries.
interesting.
So
I
this
could
is
try
all
that.
made out of little pieces of this gauze. Then when you get to a surface that's close to what you want but not exactly what you want, you can actually go over the top of this with a clay. And this is just plasticine, and it gives you a surface that's closer to what you want. You can take and fine the lines up and get the lines more directional so that you get the flow of line and surface that you want in the finished piece. Then, if you wanted to cast this, the next step would be to cast off of this piece. You take either a rubber mold or a plaster mold off of this piece and then pour into that to get what you wanted.
I like that as is.
Well, it's
pretty.
it's nice, but unless you find something to surface this with, it wouldn't stand up.
Oh.
If you were to put another material over the top of this, eventually the oil in this clay would bleed through. It would take about maybe 6 to 8, 10 months, but eventually it would leach through the whatever covering you put on it, and it sort of gets sticky and gummy, and it doesn't work. But as long as it stays like this, it stays as a good record of what you want to do. And this may set around for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and all of a sudden one day you'll say, oh boy, let's try that in this material. I just hit a new material, and I'm going to try it. And then away we go. We're off chasing dragons again, you know.
Yeah.
So this is another facet of the game while you're working on this stuff. Some of the advantages are that there are shows that are just strictly wood shows. There are shows that are all kinds of sculpture. And we go to a lot of them. We go mostly to the wood carving shows.
Looks like you've been to a few from your ribbons up there.
We have a few up there, but not all of them are up there. Some of the older ones have gotten a little careworn, you know, and a little bit raggedy. But it's surprising. The division in these shows is exceptional. At wood carving shows, you show wood, period, and that's it. I've had pieces that weren't judged because it was a piece of wood with a marble base.
Oh, it has to be all wood.
It has to be all wood.
Kind of fussy on that, huh?
We don't have any right here, but I also work in glass and in metal.
You'll let us nose into the other part of your workshop?
We'll take you over in the other half and
we'd like that.
And show you some of the wood pieces, and also explain what is going to be done in metal in the next few weeks. Incidentally, one of these memorials was done in metal, and I'm very sorry that I don't have it here, but the school picked it up last week, and I don't have it available to show you, but I can show you the sketch that it was made from and where we work, and that's over in the big half.
Okay, let's go to the big half.
The big half is also the garage. This is actually a part of a 3-car garage. It's just the appendix to the workshop. When something gets too big to work next door, where I have to lay it out on tables or get more room to work around, I bring it out here. We have a wood stove and extra heat in the wintertime, so it gets fairly comfortable in here, and we work a lot in this side. We were talking in the other side about the wire armature type thing and the memorials. This is a sketch of one of the memorials that was eventually welded up in brass and taken last week down to the school that had asked for it. But the final piece on this was considerably higher. It was maybe that much taller, and instead of having the black finish like this, it has a relatively nice gold, shiny, mottled finish. The type of thing that you get when you weld. You get some marks that are different colors than others. But this is called the swing, and has to do with the family and unity of a family. The circular construction seems to denote a oneness or a good feeling of unity. I'm sorry that the wooden figure isn't here that I could show to you, but again, that was also taken last week to be taken down to Suchard School. This is just one medium. We talked about other things, and you asked about other mediums that I work in. We'll show you some of the wood back in the cabinet here. This is a back bar from a historic bar down in Detroit, and
Al's bar.
Yeah, it just serves to keep a little of the dust off of the figures. So I'll put this aside and show you some of these pieces out of the cabinet. We have here a couple of whales. These are what they call a beluga or a pilot whale. Again, in researching the composition, find out that the beluga is the only whale that can turn its head. The others are joined through the spinal cord here. The beluga is also a whale that when it's born is a mousy brown, and as it grows to an adult, it becomes white. So we have again the classical composition of a mother and child, the beluga and calf.
And the different woods.
Different woods. Walnut for the mousy brown calf, and basswood or light basswood for the mother. Oh,
that's beautiful.
I like whales because it gives you a chance to get some flow in the composition. There's a lot of rhythm in the way they swing and swim around. The fact that the mother and calf, the young calf, stays close to the mother for a certain number of months before they separate. It's like a bonding, but it makes a nice compositional effort to get the two of them together. We'll see what else we can find up here for you. We talked about minimal carving before. One of the nice ladies in town who was a school teacher gave me this piece of driftwood, and she said it had been found on the beach on the ocean side, and as you'll see, it still has barnacles. Here on the back. There are several little barnacle shells on it, and she was cleaning out one of her drawers or a shelf in the library, something one day, and she came across it, and she had picked it up because, like most of us, we see things that intrigue us. And she called me up and said she was going to pitch it out. She said, I have a piece of driftwood for you, if you'd like to stop by and get it. She said, I know there's a face in there, but I haven't been able to find it. So after examining this for a while and looking at it, why, we did find the face, and with a minimal amount of carving, this fox and the game came out of it. The chicken, pheasant, whatever you want to call it. And we call this piece Renard's Breakfast because the red fox in the chicken coop is what it sort of symbolized.
And have the teeth in there.
Yeah, there's some teeth in there.
Really skillful.
But it's very minimal. This area was just very lightly carved and then sanded and stained a different color from the back to make it the emphasis a little more strong.
Oh, it's beautiful.
We have some terracotta here. This is an old piece. This is one that I keep for myself. It's called Korean Piata. and signifies the soldier, and again the Piata theme, the mother and the son. It's baked terracotta, and this was originally intended for a war memorial, but the people who started the competition, and there were a number of sculptures involved, the people who started the competition couldn't get it funded. Therefore, we have a nice memento of that
nice
work.
Is that a piece of alabaster you
That's
have
a
there?
piece of alabaster. These doors are noisy. They do their job.
Where do you get your, what, alabaster stone?
Well,
What
it
do they
used to
call
be
it?
that you get alabaster up north at Alabaster, Michigan. It's up near Tawas.
Oh, I didn't know there was such a
Yeah.
place.
And you could get it in chunks, but now they've installed a machine that crushes it, and they load it out in very small pieces. Most of the alabaster and the stone I get now comes from a New York supplier. And I hate to say it's a sign of the times, but your freight on the material costs more than the material does.
Oh,
But this is, again, this is a sedimentary rock. It's not a compression rock. It's not formed by heat and great pressure. It's formed by a mild pressure and just sitting in one spot. They make gypsum and filtering material out of this when it's powdered. It's a very good filtering rock. But if you get a piece of this and you want to find out if it'll stand up, you leave it outside over a winter. And if it is a good solid piece, it'll stay together. If it is not, the water runs into this sedimentary area here, these veined areas. And the first thing you know, you'll have 2 or 3 or 4 pieces where they loosen up and come apart. So
is this mostly found in the European countries? You suppose?
No,
A
it's
lot of it
found
in our
all
country?
over the world, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's found all over the world. It's found in different colors and different graininess, different
It's in red
texture.
too, isn't it?
You can
I've
get
seen
a
that
pink,
in red.
a
Yeah,
pink,
pinkish
yeah.
red.
I use this, and I also use steatite, which comes in about 4 different hardnesses, and that's the same soapstone that the Eskimos use. It ranges in the greens, jade greens to browns. So it's an easy stone to cut once you've got the idea of what you want to cut out of it. It's quite pleasant because you can do all of this with old wood chisels that you're ready to throw away, or files. Makes a nice.
Well, we got an otter up there.
Yeah, that's
That's pretty.
that's carved in butternut, and this is one of my granddaughter's favorite pieces.
Oh, isn't
She
that
manages
pretty?
to have tea parties and
The otter, huh?
yeah, he generally sits in the house on one of the lower shelves of the bookcase where she can get at him. And
Looks like he's going to come alive.
yeah, this is again, this is
Pretty.
done the way I generally carve. We have a full round trunk with the center of the trunk right here. And while a lot of people will carve from plank stock laid up, I try to carve from the full trunk because you get such a nice grain effect as you cut back in toward the center.
Yeah, this grain right here makes
yeah.
his throat, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It comes around, just looks like fur here.
The grains
Yeah.
layer, and you get a lot of nice bullseyes on the extremities.
Nice.
So there's a reason for doing everything. I get a lot of stock from old trees and stuff that I can afford to carve full round rather than plank them.
But you got a penguin up there too, it looks
You know,
like.
there's a penguin here that, again, this is carved full round from a trunk, and this is a piece of black locust, which might account for some of the stylizing in this,
That's beautiful.
because this is a very, very hard wood. Most of the people will cut black locust to either burn in their fireplace or make fence posts out of.
Mm-hmm.
And
That grain
it's
around here
exceptionally
looks
hard.
like feathers, doesn't it? And that around the crown of the head there.
It's very hard and it's very heavy. It's a heavy wood, and it's quite difficult. So in doing this, we opted for the stylized approach where there wouldn't be too much detail that would make you carve very, very fine things. This chips a little bit when you're carving it, so it's a little more difficult to carve. Let me show you a little bit about another medium. We talked about doing this and later welding.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll show you a sketch, and then we'll go over here, and I'll show you not how it's done, because we can't use the torch right now, but I'll show you what I do it with and how this thing will work out. So
I like that.
First thing we do when we do that is take off this apron for wood carving, and we go over here. We go over to this little booth right here. And we put our other work apron on that has a leather front on it that we use for this. This top sketch here is a sketch of a processional cross, and I hope we're getting a fair picture of it. The figure on here, of course, is not scaled. It's not to the scale the cross will be. This is the size of the figure that goes on the cross, and as you will see, it's built up of rather heavy wire. The pieces are added, the ribs will all be added in here, each one welded separately, and then we will use some sheet brass to fill in the other areas. The musculature and the bones of the body will be added as this is done here, where the bones wrap over and the other one will wrap over here. The head will be built up the same way. This figure is done with a regular aircraft welding torch and brazing material. And of course, you have to remember that while you're working with things like this, you move back and you put on your Hollywood shades.
Safety glasses.
So that you don't burn your eyes. And it's an entirely different perspective, because a lot of times you find your sight is limited by the color of the glass.
Mm-hmm.
But the effect you get on the final piece is worth the trouble. As you see, this figure will be built up in brass, and then it will be gilded with silver solder, polished, and the cross itself will be made out of brass 1 inch by 3/16, and the insets in here will be all stained glass. This will go on a pole to be carried and be approximately 6 foot tall.
Uh-huh.
Should be finished sometime probably before Christmas.
Very well.
It takes a little while because the buildup is a long process. You have to be able to concentrate and work steady at it. For instance, this skeletal figure here is about maybe an hour and a half's worth of work, cutting and piecing and brazing the things together, and by the time I finish the figure, I'll have considerably more hours in it.
Sounds like you're really enjoying retirement.
I don't know how I had time to go to work, truthfully. It's an interesting and it's a very fascinating way to live, you know.
Doing what you want to do, right?
Well, that's most of it, but I think you're trying to get a story that you enjoy, or things that you enjoy, across to people, everybody. Sometimes it works.
Looks
Sometimes
like
it
you're
doesn't.
successful.
You know, sometimes it doesn't.
Earlier, I heard you talking to someone, and I'd like you to share with us a story of the two artists going in, kind of a joke.
Franz Varga, my teacher, was a Hungarian displaced person who came over here, and I studied with Franz for about 2.5, 3 years before I went to GM. After I was down at the workplace for a while, I was incorporated in the committee to put up the new St. Clemens here in Romeo. Well, new St. Clemens. Now, it's been there quite a while now. But Father Dahl, who was a pastor, would call me up and say, you know, the window sketches came back. Let's look them over and send them back to Chartres, France, and things like that. And then my job would be to take that up and redo the sketches and send them back till we've got a perfect match with Mr. Loire over at Chartres. The same thing happened on the two interior statues. Father said, you know, we've got to get, I want to put two wooden figures in there that carved. And so the thing went on, and we said, go ahead, find somebody to do it. He called me up one day and he said, Al, I got somebody to do it. Can you come out to lunch and we'll go over and meet him, and you can check him out and see if it's going to fit with what we've got in the church now. So we went to lunch, and he said, this guy Varga, and right away I knew who it was. He said he has a studio over in Gratiot. So we went in there, an old bank building, dark vestibule, and Franz is a very short person. He's about 5'3", I think, but very stocky and strong built. When we came in, I saw him coming to the door, so I slipped in back of Father. And Father went in and he said, Mr. Varga, I want you to meet one of my building committee people here. He says, this is Al Guimond. And Franz poked his head around him and he says, Alfred! And he threw his arms around me and he said, why aren't you doing this? He said, sure, you're in trouble if you're not. So I just explained to him that I was too busy, but it was a meeting that had been put off for too long a time.
A little tricky.
Yeah.
Well, Al, we sure enjoyed coming in here today, and we're very thankful, and it's been very interesting.
Well, I'm very glad you came down. I enjoy seeing people and meeting people, and we hope you had a good time while you were here.
Well, I'm very glad that you shared this with us.
If we get into something exciting, we'll call you up and tell you about it.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're on location, and we hope to be back with you in a short while with another good story.